Hi guys, I want to say a word today about the concept of election. First of all, let me say that the idea of election is a solidly biblical idea. In its biblical expression, it is an aspect of the biblical doctrine of the sovereignty of God. It essentially expresses the biblical truth that God is God and you're not. Most Christians now don't have a problem with the divine sovereignty aspect of the biblical doctrine of election. Their problem is with the whole idea of predestination and the alleged foreknowledge of God. More specifically, the apparent conflict between God's sovereignty on the one hand and human freedom to choose on the other is this. If God already knows in advance what choice I will make, and if we are already either chosen or unchosen, then in what sense are we free to choose? But notice, phrasing it that way smuggles in a presupposition that dictates how we think about election, namely the adverb already. The assumption is that God, like us, lives out his life incrementally, one moment in time after another, from past to present to future. But just because we creatures live out our lives in time does not mean the Creator does. Think of your life as a straight line with the present moment merely a point or dot right in the center of the line called now. Points to the left are past and points to the right are future. Indeed, the only moment to which you have any actual access is that tiny little dot called now. What we really mean when we say past is can't get there. And what we mean by future is can't get there. The only moment to which we can get is that one called now. The line on which we live is unidirectional in a series of moments we call past, present, and future. And the only one we can access is that little moment called present. But here's the clincher. Because this is the way we experience time, we incorrectly assume that this is the way God must experience time too. But this is almost certainly wrong. God is not in time as such. His life does not consist of individual little moments, one following the other. To say it another way, while we humans live in an infinitesimally small dot called now, God experiences the whole line all at once and has equal access to every point on the line. Every dot on the line is now to God. There is no point to which God must pass before moving to the next point. His life is not dribbled out in an increment, one moment of time after another, as ours is. He is present to every moment and has infinite time, read eternity, on each. Now, this is a very helpful and liberating idea. It means, strictly speaking, that God doesn't remember what you did yesterday. He's watching you do it. And God does not, strictly speaking, foreknow what you're going to do tomorrow. He's watching you do it. Just because you don't have access to any point in time except that little dot we call now does not mean that God doesn't have access. He has access to every dot on the line because he sees the whole line at once. And so both are true, that God knows what you're going to do because he's watching you do it, and yet you are free to make your own decision in that tiny little moment we call now. What I'm saying is that the issue of the foreknowledge of God smuggles in the patent error that because we creatures are limited by time and space, it follows that the Creator is also limited in time and space. But that is almost certainly not the case. So when the Bible speaks of the foreknowledge of God or of God's foreknowing events, that's just linguistic accommodation to the fact that we humans experience time as both linear and unidirectional. God, however, does not live in time, and we err when we make him a creature living in time like ourselves. I hope that helps. Till next time, take care. God bless.